Hello students, we are back again with another MCQ today, and this is the chapter number 2 from the book Snapshots for class 11th, and the name of the chapter is the address. So let's start with the first MCQ. According to the author, when do we notice the things in the house? The options are when they are out of our sight, when they are shown, or when they are used, or all of the above. So suppose you are not finding something, then you start noticing, oh, where is it? So the correct answer is when they are out of our sight, then we start noticing things. Let's go to the next question. Was the author convinced with her mother's idea of letting Mrs. Darling take away their things? Absolutely not at all, partially, or it is not mentioned in the story. Well, so children, the correct answer for this is the author was partially convinced, not absolutely or not totally against it, but he was partially convinced. Let's go to the next one. The author remembered that the woolen tablecloth had a defect, an ink mark, a burn mark, or none of the above. So this is when the author was remembering about the woolen tablecloth. So the correct answer for this is the woolen tablecloth had a burn mark. Let's go to the next one. In total, how many times did the author visit the given address? Thrice, never, twice, or just once? So the answer for this MCQ is in total, author visited the given address twice. Let's go to the next question. How does the author describe Mrs. Darling when she saw her the first time during the war? A woman with a broad back, a woman with a round back, a woman with a straight back, or none of the above? The answer is a woman with a broad back. Next question. Why did the author leave Mrs. Darling in a hurry? Because she was getting late for the train, because she no longer wanted to stay there, both she was getting late for the train and didn't want to stay there, or none of the above, or none of these options. The answer is because of both the reasons. She was getting late for the train and also she didn't want to stay there. Let's go to the next question. In what attire did the author find Mrs. Darling? Not mentioned in the story. Author's mother green knitted cardigan, author's green knitted cardigan, or author is unable to recognize it. And the correct answer for this is author's mother's green knitted cardigan. So author remembered that cardigan very well. Why did the author wait for such a long time before visiting the address? Because she was afraid to confront her mother's belonging, because she was not interested, or none of the above, or both. She was not interested and also was afraid to confront her mother's belongings. The answer is both. Because of both the reason, the author waited. Next question. After reading the address, how would you describe Mrs. Darling? Selfish, materialistic, opportunist, or all of these? So children, we have read this story. We know the Mrs. Darling was selfish, she was materialistic, she was opportunist as well. So all of the options are correct. Let's go to the next question. What message does the address talk about? Human predicament of war, importance of things, not to trust someone, or none of these? The answer is the address talks about the importance of things in life. Next question. Mrs. Darling was an old acquaintance, an old friend, a relative, or a sister of Mrs. S. The answer is Mrs. Darling was an old acquaintance of Mrs. S. Next question. In what condition did the author find the living room? Old-fashioned, haphazard, well-arranged, or empty? The answer is haphazard. Let's go to the next question. What was the silver that the author was once asked to clean by her mother? Was it jewelry? Was it cutlery? Were they stones? Or they were sculptures? The answer is the silver that the author was once asked to clean by her mother were actually cutlery. Who opened the door upon the author's second visit to Mrs. Darling's house? Mrs. Darling's daughter, Mrs. Darling, or Mrs. Darling's husband, or no one opened the door? Answer is Mrs. Darling's daughter. Next question. Who is the author of the address? Merente de Moor, Menonapov, Marga Minko, or none of these? So you need to remember this. The answer is Marga Minko. Next question. What was the protagonist's reaction when she entered the living room? Horrified, nervous, thrilled, or emotional? The answer to this is reaction was horrified. Next question. The author had come to visit Mrs. Darling during the war, after the war, before the war, or it is not mentioned in the story. The answer is after the war. Next question. Her face gave absolutely no sign of recognition. Who is her? Mrs. S, Mrs. Darling, Mrs. Darling's daughter, or Mrs. S' daughter? The answer is Mrs. Darling. Next question. How does the author describe the living room? It was with a strange atmosphere. It had a muggy smell. It was sophisticated. Or it was both. It had a muggy smell and also it was a strange atmosphere. The answer is both. Next question. I thought that no one had come back. Why does Mrs. Darling say this? Because she had been waiting for the protagonist for a long time? Because she thought everyone in the protagonist family were dead? Because she was happy to see the protagonist? Or none of the above? So correct answer for this, children, is because she thought everyone in the protagonist's family were dead. So if everybody is dead, why would someone come? Next question. What was the address that the author's mother asked her to remember? Number 50 Marconi Street, number 46 Baker Street, number 46 Marconi Street, or number 54 Marconi Street? So children, this is an important MCQ. You may have to remember the address. The address was number 46 Marconi Street. Let's go to the next question. Why did the objects lose their value for the author? Because their prices fell down? Because they were difficult to take along? Because she had new objects? Because she saw them in different surroundings? The correct answer for this is because she saw them in different surroundings. Next question. Why had the author come to visit Mrs. Darling? Because she missed Mrs. Darling? Because Mrs. Darling called her? Because Mrs. Darling had belongings of author's mother? Or none of the options? So we know the author had gone to visit Mrs. Darling because her mother's belongings were kept by Mrs. Darling on some pretext. So because Mrs. Darling had belonging of author's mother is the right answer. Next question. At the end, what does the author decide? To forget the address, to remember the address forever, to visit next year again, or none of these options? Answer is, in the end, author decides to forget the address, to have peace of mind, I think. I was in a room I knew and did not know. What does author mean by this? She saw familiar things but in unfamiliar surroundings. She saw unfamiliar things but in familiar surroundings. Or she did not want to remember anything. Or she did not recognize the things she saw. So answer to this is, she saw familiar things but in unfamiliar surroundings. Next option. Mrs. Darling took the possessions of the things on the pretense of keeping them safe, or using them, or selling them. Answer is both, using and selling them, or something else. Okay, so Mrs. Darling took the possessions by telling, oh, I'll keep these things safe with me, give it to me. So on the pretense of keeping them safe. Next question. Unlike Mrs. Darling, her daughter was hospitable towards the author, mature towards the author, or rude towards the author, or mean towards the author. So we know Mrs. Darling was totally not hospitable. So the unlike means opposite. So hospitable. Next question. Who is the protagonist of the address? Mrs. Darling's daughter, Mrs. Darling, Mrs. S. daughter, or Mrs. S? The answer is Mrs. S. daughter. Next question. How did Mrs. Darling treat the author when the author visited her? Both warm and overjoyed, warm and welcoming, cold and inhospitable, or overjoyed? So we know when Mrs. Darling saw the author, she was totally not so happy, and she was cold and inhospitable. So children, we are coming to the last MCQ of this chapter. I hope you're enjoying them, and I hope they're going to help you in your exams to learn these questions. So if you have any suggestions on these, please comment on them. And if you like the videos, please do like them, share with your friends, and also subscribe to the channel. So last MCQ, what was the very first out of her mother's possessions that the protagonist could recognize? Woolen tablecloth, Hanukkah candle holder, green knitted cardigan, or white teapot? The answer is green knitted cardigan. That's all, friends. Have a lovely day.